Hello everybody and welcome back. I hope you had a lovely new year and a wonderful break. Tonight I have a very British Wildman. Now is this an image of the UK Bigfoot and the Northeast account? Many people worldwide are used to seeing strange images from across America, or Bigfoot faces and Sasquatch images posted in every Facebook group or forum. But what most people don't realise is, behind the scenes, away from all the hoo-ha, there are hundreds of people putting time in on their own. Money, time, expertise, whatever you want to call it, spending hours, if not years, out there, week in, week out, sometimes in the worst of weathers, trying everything and anything to get the job done. To find the evidence mainstream science demands, or to prove to themselves that what they saw is real. Many different reasons, really, why people do what we do. Now, some of them have many scary encounters. Some never go back in after the experience or hours of unappreciated time and effort. But there is a small core of diehards who go back time and time again. They get objects thrown at them and they become surrounded in the dark. They get followed back to the car and sometimes even the home. They get bluff charges and outright shows of aggression. And they do this because for them, it's not about Facebook or YouTube. It's about gathering evidence to prove what's out there. Sometimes, if we're really lucky, they'll share that evidence and finds with us. And today, I'm pleased to be able to share some images sent to me by one of Britain's leading researchers, in my opinion, and who also happens to be one of my long-term research partners and someone I'm honoured to call my friend. I'm not going to name the research area, other than to say it's not too far from Harwood. The area itself is abundant and has a number of historical reports, as well as up-to-date sightings and encounters by members of the public and researchers in general. Not too far from the Highlands and Scotland, and next to Scotland in numbers of encounters, this is one of the last vestiges, I think, in the north, long-term areas where a wildman habitat or a wildman could hang out, in all honesty. And I'm really pleased that Jay opened up and agreed to share these with me. And he says, I'm a researcher from the northeast of the UK, and I've been researching a long time now, in the field and by collecting accounts from people who live up in the north of England. And I've shared many a witness account with Deborah, so she can write their story and add it to the map. There have been a couple of reports of sightings near the railway line up here, and I'm usually out most weekends looking for sign anyway, or visiting my own research area. So I decided to check the sightings area in this neck of the woods out and have a look around. Earlier in the year, I did an area check of the Stanley Wildman account, as there are two accounts along the same trail there, and I was encouraged by the signs that I'd found, and I realised there was a workable green corridor between Harwood Forest and the Stanley area. And this encouraged me to see how many of those sighting areas I could cover along that corridor. Harwood is only an hour's drive, give or take, from the Scottish border. The area I checked had everything we usually look for. So there was a good water source, good cover, animal signs and lots of trails about. I usually look for deer sign, as that's a good indication of how an area is for wildlife. If you have deer in an area, there will be other wildlife and edibles around. I found a few signs in the area and I took a few photos while I was there. And after I got home, I decided to look over my photos and found this in one of them. I decided to go back and get a comparison photo and it wasn't there. So I provided both the image and the comparison. I will be revisiting the area over the next 12 months so I can see how the woodland changes as the seasons roll in. A comparison shot is a fantastic idea. If you think you've got something in an image, the best thing that you can do is get back there as quickly as possible and take a comparison shot standing in the same area. If what you're seeing in one photograph isn't there, then that is an anomaly and worth looking at. If you see a stump, then you know it's a stump, and then you put that bone to bed and you move on. But I wanted to add some of the reports from around the area to give you an idea of what people are reporting. And there are a number of them I haven't spoken about before, so it gives me a chance to bring them to you. Most of these witnesses are just ordinary people going about their daily business. And the first one is a dark morning Bigfoot. Now this happened in February of 2018. I'm making this report on behalf of my husband. He travels most days along this stretch of road to and from work. He's used to being in the area in all weathers and has on one occasion seen a large black cat run out in front of him as he was driving. Which, to be fair, is not that unusual up here. The area is heavily wooded and there's ample wildlife and habitat to enable anything to hide out if it wanted to. Now this particular morning it was around 20 to 9, so 8:40 a.m. and it was a dark winter morning, March 2018. He was driving along the road as normal, keeping an eye out for deer or any animal that would dash out in front of the car. And we live quite close to this area and we've heard strange noises ourselves at night. As my husband was making his way down the road, he was astonished to see what he would describe as a Bigfoot-type creature. He passed it quickly, so he couldn't give me any minute details. Just a large, hairy, typical Bigfoot-type creature description standing on the edge of the forest, picked out by the lights of the car. And then another one, a possible Bigfoot in 2017 in Low Shipley. And I was contacted by Ross Hodgson, I apologise Ross, who saw something strange in Hampsterley Forest while out hiking. And he said, I was walking in the woods up in the Black Banks, an area close to Low Shipley and very near Walsingham. I was out hiking and just walking along and I saw something that I could not really describe. And I thought could have been a Bigfoot type creature. I once watched a documentary about them, and this thing I saw looked exactly the same as the thing in the documentary. It was upright, hair covered, and all one colour. I'm positive there's one lurking in the woods around Hampsterley Forest, and I know people will not believe me, but what I saw looked like a Bigfoot that you'd see on TV. And we just nip across to Cold Heselden, and we have the glowing-eyed Mothman creature of 2009. Now, this didn't come into me. It came into the Centre for Fortean Zoology, I think, if my memory serves me correctly. It says, on the outskirts of Seaham, on the northeast coast of England, there is a pub called the Pemberton Arms, and it's known to the locals as the White House. A married couple in their early 40s visited the White House on Saturday evening in October 2009 to watch a live band. Now, I don't know if the band they had wanted to see had not turned up or what, but they decided to leave early, just after 10 p.m. And because it was unusually warm for that time of year, they decided to walk back into town for a few more drinks to finish off the night. They left the pub and turned right and walked down the lane that would lead them to the well-lit main road into town. As they got to the end of the lane, something caught their eye in the field next to the fence. At first, they thought it was a Shire horse, because of its size, but it was definitely not a Shire horse. Bill and Kate both described the thing as man-shaped and at least 7 foot tall. The colour was jet black with piercing red eyes, and wherever it was, it just stood there, motionless. Bill and Kate looked at it in disbelief for about 15 seconds. Then it let out a scream like a fox before disappearing straight down, like it fell down a well or a trapdoor. And that did it. Bill and Kate then ran like hell. They ran onto the main road and they didn't stop until they got near the recently built water treatment plant there, exhausted and out of breath. Bill tried to phone a taxi, but found his mobile phone was dead, although it was working fine before the pub. So half running, half walking, and both of them constantly looking about, they got home, terrified out of their wits and unable to understand what they had just witnessed. It was 3 weeks later when they felt able to explain in some way what had happened. They're very upset that this has happened to them, and they did not want to talk about it to anyone for fear of ridicule. They are angry and confused. Why us, they said. They want to put it all behind them. You'd be amazed how many times a witness, including myself, says, why me? Why did it have to be me? 10 more seconds and I would never have seen it, and I just carried on going, and that'd have been it. Now, a motocross rider saw a man-like figure cross in front of him in 2012, and he said, I'm a keen motorcyclist and I like motocross as it's my hobby. I try to get out whenever I can, and I had a really strange experience back in September 2012 that I was hoping you could help me with. I had decided to get in an early morning ride, and I headed off to Harwood Forest, as I'd love to ride there, and they have a trail set out for motocross. So after I arrived and been there riding for a while, I saw something, and it was about 8 a.m. on a Sunday morning, and what I was seeing was impossible, but it was right in front of me, and I couldn't confuse it with anything else. There's nothing else that looks like this. I was on a motocross bike, so I wasn't quiet or anything. By this time, I might have made it onto the main track going through Harwood Forest itself, and I noticed something coming towards me, all one solid colour. I thought it was someone in a burqa or a ghillie suit at first, as there was just one overall colour, no clothing at all. As I thought it was a person, it didn't really bother me, and I just planned to go around them when we crossed on the track. So I dropped the bike into second gear and just carried on towards them. But by this point, they were about 250 yards in front of me, and it turned and went into the trees. I stopped where I'd seen it, and I put the bike against a tree, and I looked for what it was or where it had gone, and there's no tracks, no flattened grass or anything. I still don't know what or who it was to this day. I used to go to Harwood every Sunday for a ride around. Now this morning I was going up the main track from the village, and I was in high gear to keep the noise of the bike to a minimum, but I was still noisy. When I got just past halfway up that main track, I looked up and something human looking walked from right to left across the trail. And as I said earlier, I honestly thought it was a person in a burqa or a ghillie suit. I thought, how strange to be out here dressed like that. Now, I've included a map for you to see, and the link to this article is in the description in the video below. And he's took a map and he's shown me where the route that he took with the bike to keep the noise down as he went past the houses. The blue mark is where it crossed the track in front of him, and the yellow is where he noticed it crossing. So I'm still unsure as to what it was, he said. It was all the same colour everywhere, a dark brown colour. I didn't see a face or anything. I couldn't make any detail out, and it moved and looked like a person, but it wasn't human. I could see that. Until next time, good night.